I would say one of the best in like dribbling in that way is probably Neymar that I played against.
Football fans think Neymar wasted his talent. Football legends think he was one of the most gifted players they ever saw.
Not stop Neymar for 25 minutes in the final. He was unstoppable.
One of them is wrong. Because when football's greatest players are asked a simple question, who was the most talented player you've ever played with? The same name keeps appearing. Again. And again. And again. Neymar Jr. But here's the strange part. These players aren't talking about trophies. They're not talking about numbers or medals or finals won.
Like to challenge one, he likes to challenge all 11 if it's possible.
They're talking about something else. Something they saw from 3 feet away. Something the rest of us, watching from the stands or through a screen, never got to see. Different clubs. Different countries. Different generations of the sport. And somehow, they all keep arriving at the same answer. That kind of agreement doesn't happen by accident. So let's go through it, one legend at a time.
Honestly, I'd have to say Neymar. I was a bit starstruck at times. Just some of the little flicks he was doing and things. You know, I had to keep professional and yeah. But I'd have to say Neymar is unbelievable what he does every game. And
Pelé saw it first. Why? Because long before Barcelona, before Paris, before the world had an opinion, Pelé watched a teenager on a Santos training pitch make grown professionals look lost. He called him the most naturally gifted Brazilian since himself. Not since Ronaldinho. Since himself. Defenders twice Neymar's age couldn't get near him. Not because he was fast. Because they never knew which way he was going. Left foot, right foot, a step over into nothing that sent grown men the wrong direction while the ball never moved. At the time, people assumed it was an old legend being generous with a hometown kid. Within 2 years, nobody was calling it generous anymore. Then Messi saw it up close. And that's where things got interesting. Because in 2013, a 21-year-old arrived at Barcelona into a dressing room built entirely around Messi himself. The pressure would have swallowed most players whole. Instead, Messi adjusted his own game around him. This is a man who shared a pitch with Xavi, Iniesta, Suárez, and dozens of other elite footballers across 2 decades. Yet whenever Neymar comes up, Messi talks differently. Because Neymar could solve situations on a football pitch that nobody else in that dressing room could. Iniesta had a different problem. He couldn't read Neymar. A man who read the game a full second ahead of everyone else, and still admitted he couldn't predict what Neymar would do next.
Is there more talent than Neymar? I don't know. I don't know if this exists. More talent, more natural, easy-looking talent than Ney. I don't think it's possible. He combines pretty much everything: speed, dribblings, passing, assisting, finishing.
Both feet equally dangerous. Constant feints that meant nothing about his body could be trusted. For Iniesta, the problem was never stopping Neymar. It was predicting him. Suárez saw something else entirely. One of the most ruthless finishers in the sport's history, admitting something strikers rarely admit about a teammate. On certain days, Neymar could do things on a football pitch that even Suárez couldn't fully explain. Not the finishing. The chance creation before it, the part of the goal nobody puts on the stat sheet. Xavi noticed it in training, of all places. A man who never wasted a single touch in 15 years of world-class football, describing the experience of defending Neymar like chasing a shadow that argued back. Not because of raw pace. Because of the improvisation. The refusal to ever do the obvious thing, even when it was open. And Dani Alves had the longest view of all. He played next to Neymar longer than almost anyone, for club and country both. He said that on his day, Neymar was the closest thing to unplayable Alves had ever stood beside. 6 legends. 6 different reasons. The same unsettled tone every time. And then, just as the world was starting to believe this version of Neymar was inevitable, football almost lost him entirely. Summer of 2014. The World Cup, on home soil, an entire country carrying its hopes on one 22-year-old's shoulders. Neymar was doing it. goal after goal, carrying Brazil through the group stage and into the knockouts, the entire country's expectations resting on a 22-year-old who had never played in a World Cup before. Then, in the quarterfinal against Colombia, a single knee to the back ended it all in half a second. A fractured vertebra. Stretch it off, tournament over, before the biggest matches had even arrived. Brazil played the semi-final without him, at home, in front of their own supporters. And lost 7-1. And that's when Neymar's teammates understood exactly what Brazil had lost. Years later, players from that squad would describe the difference Neymar made in a way statistics never could. Because Brazil hadn't just lost their best attacker. They had lost their one unpredictable solution. Teammates from that squad still say the same thing to this day. Not that Brazil would have definitely won with him on the pitch, but that the collapse might never have happened exactly like that, without a player capable of doing the unpredictable thing when nothing else was working. That was the first tragedy of this story. It would not be the last. Neymar recovered. And 3 years later, he delivered the single moment that explains, more than any other, why this reputation refuses to die. March 2017. Barcelona, down 4 to Paris Saint-Germain from the first leg. Eliminated on paper, and every calculation, by every pundit on television that week. Neymar doesn't read paper. Early in the second half, Barcelona claw 1 goal back. Then another. The stadium starts to believe in something that shouldn't be possible. A free kick, curled in with no room for error. A penalty, converted under suffocating pressure. Then, in the final minute of stoppage time, a pass threaded through a defense with nothing left to give. 6-1. The most impossible comeback in Champions League history. Gerard Piqué saw it from inside the team. And later, he made something clear. That night wasn't Barcelona's system saving Barcelona. It was Neymar refusing to let the result die. That night is the moment that explains why legends choose Neymar. Not the whole career. That single 90 minutes. Then came the collapse the world actually remembers. Months later, Neymar left Barcelona for Paris Saint-Germain, for a transfer fee nobody had ever paid before and nobody has matched since. Critics called it ego, the moment he chose fame and a bigger paycheck over greatness. Then the injuries returned, and this time they didn't stop. Ankle, foot, metatarsal, fractured more than once, each surgery followed by months of rehabilitation and a comeback that never quite reached where it left off. The public conversation flipped completely. Not how good is he, but what happened to him. Headlines moved on. Fans moved on. The players never did. Then came Mbappé. The player who grew up watching Messi and Cristiano dominate football from a television screen. And when he finally stood next to Neymar, something changed. Because suddenly, the talent everyone had spent years arguing about was standing 3 feet away from him. He admitted that training alongside an injury hit, criticized Neymar was the moment he finally understood what a truly elite footballer looked like up close. Not from a screen. From standing next to him. Thiago Silva chose Neymar. Why? Because Silva says that even carrying an injury, Neymar could still embarrass full professionals in a training session, making grown men stop mid-drill just to watch. Verratti chose Neymar. Why? Because Verratti says Neymar's ability to receive the ball under impossible pressure and still create something from nothing was unlike anything he experienced with anyone else at Paris Saint-Germain. Di Maria chose Neymar. Why? Because Di Maria, a man who has played with Messi and Mbappé both, says defending Neymar in a 5-a-side kickabout was more unsettling than facing genuine world-class strikers in a real match. Casemiro chose Neymar for a different reason. Casemiro has played with Cristiano Ronaldo, Luka Modric, Karim Benzema, Vinicius Jr. But with Brazil, he saw Neymar carry a responsibility most players never experience. Every time the game stopped working, the ball eventually found Neymar. Because everyone on the pitch knew the same thing. If anyone could create something from nothing, it was him. So ask the bigger question. Why does a player the entire football world had already written off keep getting described by his own teammates like the injuries interrupted something rare, instead of simply ending a career that was always going to plateau? Here's the answer. Fans watch football through a scoreboard. Trophies. Finals won or lost. Players watch football through a completely different lens. What it feels like to be embarrassed by someone in a training session nobody ever filmed. What it feels like to lose your footing for one accidental half second against a player who makes the impossible look like an accident. That scoreboard doesn't exist on television. It only exists in the memory of the people who stood close enough to actually see it. The Neymar football remembers is the one lost to injuries, headlines, and a transfer fee that swallowed the conversation whole. The Neymar legends remember is the same player Pelé warned the world about before anyone else was paying attention. Pelé saw it first. Messi saw it. Iniesta saw it. Suárez saw it. Xavi saw it. Dani Alves saw it. Mbappé saw it. María saw it. Casemiro saw it. Different generations. Different countries. Different definitions of greatness. Yet when they looked at Neymar, they weren't asking how many trophies he won. They were remembering what happened when the ball reached his feet. And maybe that's why football fans still argue about what Neymar should have become, while the people who actually played with him already know what he was. Neymar Jr. fade to black.